Today, I'm joined by our Showcasing SVT Pioneers of 2023. Today, I'm joined by Miss Megan Dale. She's a Chief Cardiac Physiologist at Buckinghamshire Healthcare NHS Trust. Hello, Megan, and welcome. Thank you very much for your time.
My name is Megan, as you say, Tracy. I'm a Chief Cardiac Physiologist at Buckinghamshire Healthcare NHS Trust. I did this study with my colleague, Dr. Norman Qureshi, who's a consultant cardiologist and electrophysiologist. My background's in cardiac rhythm devices, so that's what I work with day in, day out. And Norman actually pushed me to start up this new clinic to see if it was, going to be useful for our patients, some of our patient cohort that were suffering with infrequent palpitations. So that's where I'll probably start today. Unfortunately, one of the main issues that we have with 12-lead ECGs is by the time patients get to the emergency department or end up, being able to go to their GP or even see a cardiologist, they won't be experiencing their palpitations. This is due to the transient nature of palpitations. They usually only last a short amount of time. So they're really difficult to catch with that gold standard test. So for the last few decades now, we've been using what's called ambulatory Holter monitoring to try and capture these rhythms. And this is so we can be looking at the heart rhythms when, people aren't in hospital. Unfortunately, these usually come with a lot of wires and people have to wear them for a prolonged amount of time. So usually over a day, and patients don't tend to, be liking wearing these around, as you can imagine. So this is where Cardia comes in. And we wanted to see how clinically viable this technology was. And this is because smartphone use has erupted over the last decade. We've got a load of new technologies that are coming onto the market, and we really need to validate before we start handing these things out how clinically useful they might be. At the moment, with the ambulatory Holter monitoring, the pathway is can be quite long and cost ineffective and disappointing for patients because we might be waiting a long time until we get a diagnosis. They may need repeated tests. This might be repeated emergency admissions or admissions to the GP. So as you can see, there's a lot of disadvantage with our current system. So that is why we introduced what we call the Cardia Clinic. Cardia is a handheld device. Patients use it with their mobile phone, with an app on their mobile phone. And what we did is we set up the clinic so patients would come in, we would talk to them about how to use the monitor. So they were able to switch it on and be able to do a single lead ECG recording. So not as good as the gold standard 12 lead, but something that you've got to hand and the ability to kind of try and capture something at the point of symptoms. This means that it doesn't need to be attached to the patient. They simply just need to carry it around with them as they would with their phone and just initiate a recording whenever they felt their symptoms of palpitations occur. Patients really, really liked the fact that they could have a bit more control over this. And it also meant we could really zone in on when they were experiencing their symptoms of palpitations. So they would have this monitor instead for a 25-day monitoring period. So we were able to let them have it for longer than they would normally with an ambulatory Holter monitor because they didn't need to wear it. And then we were able to look at the results and see how clinically useful this was for our patients who were suffering infrequent palpitations. So just to give an example, this is where patients would come to our clinic and they would be on the app, they would be able to record their single lead ECG, they would then be able to see a 30-second snapshot of their ECG, and then they would be able to send it to our secure NHS email address where their tracings would be looked at and reviewed by a cardiac physiologist, and they might send multiple tracings in that 25-day period whenever they were symptomatic with their palpitations, and then we could review them before passing on the results to the referring cardiologist. And we had all of our cardiologists involved and our cardiac specialist nurses who referred patients, and their patients would come. We would set them up with this if they had an applicable phone that was able to download the software. we would give them their little cardio monitor to take away, and they were able to just initiate recordings whenever they felt their symptoms come on. So results wise, we were actually able to find that we gained a 62% symptom rhythm correlation with the Kardia devices, which is absolutely amazing. You compare it to the standard practice of Holter ambulatory monitoring at the moment, we usually only get about a 16% kind of diagnostic yield of symptom rhythm correlation. So it's a massive jump. We were able to find in 22.49%, as it says there, we were able to diagnose SVT in that group of patients. So, you know, almost a quarter of those patients then had a diagnosis of SVT, which is really important to then go on and be able to medically treat. We then kind of zoned in on Dr. Qureshi, who's an electrophysiologist, his referrals, and we found that out of those that he had referred to the service, 48% had actually achieved a symptom rhythm correlation, which showed supraventricular tachycardia that was responsible for their symptoms, which is amazing, because this could take, you know, months, years to diagnose, and actually just having one of these monitors for less than a month has made all the difference to these patients. So we were able to find that 28% of those were diagnosed with paroxysmal AF or atrial flutter, and then the remaining 20% with another form of supraventricular tachycardia, and these included atrial tachys and also atrioventricular re-entry tachycardias or nodal re-entry tachycardias. So now we've been able to validate the diagnostic use of Kardia. We now just can't stop shouting about it. We've got other places that are getting in touch to see how they can set up a clinic of their own, because we've had great results from these. And we're hoping that this technology can now be embraced and that it can hopefully streamline patient pathways and help patients ultimately, but also increase the cost effectiveness for our NHS trusts up and down the country.
Thank you, Megan. That was fantastic, very informative. I'm also a big fan of the Kardia Mobile, I have to be honest with you. I find they're very effective, very quick and very convenient to many. I've just got a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Yeah,
so first of all, this really is a great example of detecting SVT sooner. However, how can we encourage more cardiology clinics to adopt this approach? Do you think this is something we should encourage GP surgeries to adopt? As most people first attend a GP appointment and they do not get to see a cardiologist until referred by a GP. Can you imagine how many people living with SVT yet struggling to obtain a diagnosis would be?
Yes, I can. I mean, I know, you know, it's so difficult to be able to, you know, finally obtain that diagnosis, and the earlier the point of contact that has this technology available, the better. A lot of patients already may have a technology that's available on a wearable device, so I always, you know, say it's useful to take that into the GP if there's anything that they're able to kind of show them evidence wise. I do know that the Apple ECG is quite good in their current models, so that's from a patient perspective what they may already have available. However, obviously that's not the case for a lot of people. I have reached out to our local GP surgeries and I have said, this is what we're doing and we want to make it more available to you. This is the technology, this is how it's used. And they were keen themselves to potentially get some devices and try and offer that as a first line treatment after they've been, you know, just doing their 12 EBCCs to see if they could. But I think it varies place to place how confident the GPs are with different diagnoses of heart rhythm disorders. So we offered, if you have someone that you think would be applicable to the clinic, someone suffering infrequent palpitations, if you refer them to cardiology as you would for a Holter device, and instead request Kardia, the consultant that is then responsible can have a look and see that if they're applicable to the clinic, then I can instead put them in our clinic in the first place instead. So this is streamlining the pathway. So we've already started doing that in our community, and that's what I would urge others to do from the get-go, now that we know that this technology is able to do this, you know, not just for single patient case studies, but as a clinic as a whole. So yeah, definitely that's the road it needs to go down on. If GPs are able to use the technology confidently, are happy to set that up themselves, then brilliant. If the referrals come through, the cardiologist should be streamlining it to this clinic as a first port of call in those that are suitable for it.
Absolutely. So we also know SVT is underdiagnosed and it may not be dangerous or life-threatening. However, for many people living with it, it can be very troublesome and disruptive to everyday life and their activities. What more do you think can be done to help these people? And should we encourage them to have a monitor, such as the AliveCor Cardia, at home with them, so they can record and therefore have evidence to show their general physician, which would then speed up the referral and diagnosis and ultimately reduce costs to the healthcare systems, because fewer visits to primary physician, A&E, cardiology departments, etc.
I do usually advise the patients that come to see me as part of this clinic, if they haven't had a diagnosis and they are still suffering their infrequent palpitations and they haven't been able to catch their arrhythmia or palpitation, I do suggest that they potentially go out and get one of these monitors and invest in one of them, as it may get them an answer quicker than waiting for repeated admissions. This is only if they come out and they have not had a symptom in that 25-day period. If they have, and we've been able to kind of prove, say it was sinus rhythm at that time, their palpitation wasn't due to an arrhythmia, then we can also offer them reassurance that we need to look into other lines of investigation, as we've been able to prove that they have not experienced an arrhythmia whilst they've been having that monitor and using it for their palpitations, which also puts a lot of people at ease as well. But yes, I definitely do advise that they buy one of these monitors and invest in one of them. They're less than £100, which is still a lot of money. But if it's been going on for a while and it's to save a lot of time and effort, then if they purchase one of these, then it can really fast track having that evidence to show the doctor the next time that they have one of their events. And I know a few people that have then gone on and done that, and then they've been able to use the monitor successfully to evidence their SVT outside of the clinic.
Absolutely. And we've got lots of details about the AliveCor on our website as well, on our Know Your Pulse campaign. And also we do offer them on our shop online. So, you know, they are very popular and we do dispatch quite a few of them. I would just like to say thank you. And I think this is an excellent example, which not only helps with diagnosis, but it also provides people living with SVT hope that their symptoms will be identified and they will be diagnosed and treated. So I'd just like to say thank you very much, Megan, for your presentation today. Many congratulations again on behalf of the charity. So thank you.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you for running the competition so we can show your audience, other NHS professionals, people suffering heart arrhythmias, that absolutely there is hope, and we're striving to always be bettering our treatment and what we can offer, but we have to do it safely, and that's what we've done with this quite long case study.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you.